Welcome back to another episode of Grit to Glow. Wow, you guys, I am so excited to kick off this next season of Grit to Glow. So it's been on my heart because, as I embarked on this journey last year in kicking off this space, this podcast, to really sit down and reassess and envision what I wanted this podcast to look like. So this episode is all about going after what you want and not allowing yourself to feel limited based on what someone else says your journey has to look like. So one of the things that I was really reflecting on as I was sitting down and saying, okay, I have this brand, I have this business that I've built, and as I see it growing, continuing to grow over the next 1, 3, 5 years, and so on, I want it to look like this, and I want it to look like that, And so for me, as I sat down and envisioned what I wanted this space to look like, first off, I am in my car driving right now. I am in my car driving to go to the grocery store to pick up a couple of things for breakfast that my kids requested that I make today. And it's so interesting because I think that, especially in the podcast world, we think this has to be this perfectly edited, filtered, space that people come. And as it grows, sure, could it evolve into that? Absolutely. And the season of my life that I'm in, like, this podcast is not created to monetize my business. This podcast, the intention of this space was to have a platform, a shared platform where women can come who are female entrepreneurs, who are mamas, who are like-minded, who want to have it all, who want to have the business and the babies and the successful marriage and learn and grow themselves consistently over the course of their life and not just sit back and allow motherhood to consume you and using that as an excuse for why you can't go after what you want. Like, this space is for that woman. And so when I look at, like, what does this podcast truly need to look like? It's not editing out the verbiage that I say so consistently, my husband always jokes with me. He goes, if you continue to use like or literally as often as you do, it is not tasteful. Like, when it comes to public speaking or when it comes to clear, concise communication, and always encouraging me to stretch myself and look at how I'm doing things. And so that comes from that lens. And while I see that and understand that and accept that that is where I need to grow, I also want to be authentically me. That's how I speak. That's how I present myself. So for me, it does not feel authentic to edit and filter out those parts of who I am. It doesn't feel authentic to edit out any oopsies that I make as I'm speaking to you in this space. And so this episode is for the entrepreneur who has always wanted to start a podcast and hasn't, because you have this perception that creating a podcast has to be those things. It has to be edited. It has to be filtered. It has to be concise, because if it's not, people won't want to continue to listen. And I would urge you to consider the opposite, that you get to be all of you and that your people are going to see your truth and resonate with that. And they're going to want to continue to show up in your community. And that's what a podcast is, right? It's creating a culture and a community that is like-minded individuals, podcast people, if you will, people who enjoy listening to podcasts. They believe in a sense of fostering community through that space, right? That's why, even early on in my journey, I really resonated with Ed Milet. That was my top podcast I would listen to, because in his podcast is, of course, edited, right? He's grown this massive successful following through his podcast, and it is so relatable. It's not filtered in how the individuals who come onto the podcast speak. Like, that space, for all intents and purposes, is very, very open and honest and authentic. And so I thought about, okay, as I'm creating season 2 of this space, what do I want this podcast to look and feel like? And do I think that my ideal listener, if you're listening to this right now, maybe you can shoot me an email and answer this question too, but Do I think that my ideal listener is listening to podcasts on repeat all summer long? No. She's at the beach with her kids, soaking in the memories and the moments. She's at the pool, swimming, and not even near her phone. She is traveling. She's experiencing life. And maybe somewhere in between, she's on an airplane and has her podcast in, right? Maybe somewhere in between, she's catching up on her favorite things. Or maybe she's putting them down and she's reading the book that she's wanted to read all year but hasn't had time for, right? She's on an airplane. And so, yes, she could be listening to a podcast, but maybe she's reading for once. Maybe she's taking a beat. And so when I sat down and thought, like, do I want this to be a continuous week by week episode? No. I want this to be seasonal. I want it to be the thing that supports you in your busiest seasons, in your moments, in the mix of the messy and the grind and the gritty, and to help you feel empowered and propelled forward in your glow up. I don't want this to be a space where you feel like if you miss out, then you have FOMO when you're missing out. Like, no, that's not what this is for. This space shouldn't feel heavy. This should feel so connected to who you are and who you're becoming. Becoming the her you always have known is deep inside of you, that you're continuing to evolve, that you're continuing to refine what she looks like, right? And so just as like an overview, this podcast is, yes, going to be seasonal. So we're going to have seasons based on the school year, essentially. This podcast is going to take breaks during my kids' breaks to allow for, life and the spaciousness of life. And while I could pre-record ahead of time, right? Like, that doesn't feel aligned for me. And so, reminder, you don't have to do for others. People will constantly tell you what smart marketing is, or that you should do based on other people's actions and behaviors. But what I'm here to tell you is this: your brand, the way in which you embody the things that you believe in, are going to showcase to others what's possible for them. And that it's possible. And so it's okay to rewrite the rules. It's okay to have your podcast be seasonal and take a couple weeks off for each break as your school seasons go, because you're a busy mama who likes to do that. Period. End of story. There doesn't have to be a justification. There doesn't have to be this explanation of who you are and why you do what you do. And do I have to come on and share my heart and soul with you around this topic? No. But do I choose to do that because I want you to understand and feel so connected with you and who you are, and feeling empowered in how you make decisions for your business or your brand and the things that you value and love and believe in. This space started as a passion project and it's grown, right? If you're listening, maybe you've been here since day one. Maybe you've been here since the first episode, or maybe this is your first episode you're tapping into. Regardless of the situation, I want to empower you to go back and re-listen to some of the previous episodes to feel more connected to this community and get excited for what's coming, because what's coming is based off of what's possible for you too. You may be someone who believes that a podcast has to be 30 plus minutes for it to be a good podcast. You may be someone who believes that your listeners want this super robust space to come to every single week. But I would urge you to think about, what do you need? Does something that's more than 15 to 20 minutes pull up on your phone? Like, if you pulled up a podcast today and you were like, I want to listen to a good podcast, let's search some of my top podcast faves. Like, let me pull up Ed Milet. Let me pull up Lori Harder. Like, let me pull up the Rachel Hollis podcast. Like, whatever it is. And if that space feels heavy because you open it up and the most recent episode was 45 minutes long and you're like, I just need a quickie, like I just need a 10 to 15 minute podcast today, then your listeners probably need that too. And so you're not doing them a disservice. In fact, you are doing them an incredible service by going and then creating what they exactly need. What you need is probably what your people need, right? You don't have to go out of your comfort zone or out of your values and your boundaries around your life to create what someone else wants or desires. Likely, the woman who's 3 steps behind you that needs your services desires what you do. because she has a busy life freaking too, right? So these episodes are going to be fitted on the season I'm in. Maybe they're going to be 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes they'll be interviews and they'll be longer and more robust. But my mission, my vision with this space is showing you that it doesn't have to fit a mold, showing you that you get to do the things that you want and create magic, absolute magic out of those spaces because you went first. You get to teach other women what's possible because you go first. So this is your reminder that if you are someone who needed a permission slip or needed a little extra push to go do the thing you've been waiting to do because of whatever rules you have in your head you have to follow, drop them. Drop the rules, rewrite them today, and go make some magic. That, my friends, is where the glow up exists. So thank you for tuning in to season 2, episode 1 of Grit to Glow. I'm so excited to be back in this space with you. If you love this episode, please share it into your stories. If it sparked an idea or a vibe or a feeling for you, feel free to email me at naomiberm@busymama.com. I would love to hear from you. And I cannot wait to see you back next week for our next episode of Grit to Glow. Mwah.